I started training judo. Judo is a Japanese martial arts. Is there anybody here who actually does martial arts? Anybody here does martial arts? Yes? No? No. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's good for me to know, because then I'm not gonna talk too much in detail about martial arts, at least not on a technical level. So anyway, I started martial arts when I was 9. Because also when I was playing football or handball or any other team sport, I always ended up getting in a fight with everybody. So my parents were like, what to do with this kid? Like, I was beating up everybody. Okay, so somebody, green belt in Kung Fu San So. I do Qigong, great. I don't know what Kung Fu San So is, but Qigong I do. Oh yeah, another thing, now that we are talking about me all the time, why do I always have a green mouth? Why? Because I'm chewing coca leaves every day, all day. It's my coffee. Like, people drink coffee, I chew coca leaves. It gives energy, and it's much more clean. It's a much more, it's actually opening up certain brain centers and lifting up Kundalini and stuff like that. So this is indigenous. I'm in Andes Mountains in Ecuador. So this is natural. That's why my mouth is always green on all the videos, by the way. So anyway, I started training judo, and my judo teacher was a Japanese historian. Like, he was not Japanese, but he was a historian, a PhD in history of Japan and history of sports in general and all stuff. And he became my mentor, my teacher, my guru, or whatever you want to call it. He also wrote a book about judo, and he were taking care of me in many ways, where it was like, when we took a train ride, we were sitting there in the train, and then suddenly he just got up and told me, stand up. And I was like standing up, and then we had to stand in the middle of the train, and it was like a subway train, so it's very bumpy ride and all that stuff. And we had to kind of stand there and keep the balance, and without holding on to anything, and using our breath to do so. And so I learned a lot about anchoring and grounding and stuff like that with him. He told me about the breath. Judo is a wrestling art where we are throwing each other and taking people out of balance and all stuff. And he taught me how to train to music, learn to move to the music. And my training partners some of them were grown-up men and huge people. And so I got really trained hard, and I loved it. And also what I loved about it is I could use all my energy without hurting anybody. And that was great. So I trained that for like 7-8 years or something like that. By the way, another thing you need to know about me is, I think it has to do with these near-death experiences. My perception of time is completely different from other people. So I don't understand time. I never will, I think, because now I'm 48 and I still don't understand time. Time is an illusion. So forgive me for jumping back and forward in my life story, because I just don't. I don't see things as a linear thing anymore. I don't see linear things. And so, but anyway, I trained judo for like 7, maybe more years. And I loved it, but it was, at one point, it was too boring for me. I wanted something more dynamic, aggressive, like powerful, crazy, wild stuff. As I grew up, I became more and more of a rebel, and anti-authority and stuff like that. So so I remember I was sitting in the judo dojo, and right next door there was this wooden wall, kind of like a thin wall, but right next door was a karate class going on. And I heard people like screaming and shouting. I'm like, super fast movement and dynamic and all that stuff. And I was just like, what is that? And so I went down to look, and I just loved it. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I was also, by the way, totally into Bruce Lee and all that stuff back then. And so I went to the teacher, and it was a female sensei. So it turns out it's a big dojo, and there's many senseis. So there was the top guy who was only teaching black belts, and many of them were like Danish champions and champions of in both form and fighting and form movement. And so it was a very high level dojo. It was very elite stuff, and like some of the best fighters in the country was training there. But also there was many other classes further down with the belt degrees and all that stuff. And the one I was supposed to start was being taught by a woman. And I asked her, can I train? And she said, you know, we have to go for graduation in 2 weeks from now. So I'm only taking you in if you promise me you train really hard and you will never give up. And if you don't pass this graduation, then I'm gonna kick you out. And the others has trained for 3 months before me, so they had 3 months to prepare, and I had these 2 weeks. And I just said to her, okay, I'll try. And so I went in and I trained like crazy, and I loved it, and I felt like I have done this before in another lifetime. And I was learning very fast. In fact, I was learning really fast. And so we went for graduation, and the top sensei, he came to graduate us, and basically I was the only one in the class who was offered to jump one belt above the actual belt we were supposed to have. So I skipped the belt and did the graduation for the next level just from 2 weeks of training. And everybody else was like, they were upset at me for doing that. I just come in and then I advance faster than them. And then the next graduation, I did the same thing. And then I couldn't train with this class anymore. And so I had to go to another class that trained like a year more than me or whatever it was. And I did the same thing. Every graduation I skipped belts because I was talented. I was really good at this. So basically normally it takes like at least 5, maybe 6 years to become a black belt. I was a black belt in 2.5 years. And I was on the national team as well as a fighter within those 2.5 years. And so, and which is that's unheard of. That's crazy. So I did that, and I started competing. And at one point, I started competing, and I went to the European Championships, and I got my ass kicked. I was not on that level, but at one point I was competing nationally, and I won 2nd place in fighting, 1st place in team kumite, like for teams, and what else? I think 2nd place for individual kata and stuff like that. So anyway, I was doing quite well,